He came back after 2 years and told me he had made a mistake. He used those exact words, made a mistake, which is a very specific kind of language, the kind that makes something sound like a slip rather than a sustained series of choices. He stood in my doorway with that particular expression people have when they've rehearsed something many times and are now delivering it and hoping it lands. I let him finish. Then I made him a cup of tea, because I am that kind of person, and I sat down across from him and I listened to the rest of it. He had left for someone else, 2 years earlier. He hadn't said that at the time, he'd said he needed space, that we had grown apart, that he wanted to be honest with me rather than let something die slowly. These were not lies exactly, but they were constructed to obscure the more direct truth, which was that he had already started something with someone else and had decided he wanted that instead. I had found out about the other person about 3 months after the ending, which is the usual timeline. By then I had done most of my grieving in the wrong direction, for the relationship, for us, for the version of the future I had believed we were building. When I found out about her I had to grieve again, differently. For the version of him I had thought I knew. 2 years of that. And then he appeared in my doorway with his practiced expression and his careful language and his very specific phrase, made a mistake, and told me he wanted to come back. I asked him what had happened. He said they had ended things. He said it hadn't been what he thought it would be. He said, and this is the part one keep coming back to, that he had realized what he had with me was rare and he hadn't understood that until he didn't have it anymore. I sat with that for a moment. Here's what I knew, sitting across from him in my kitchen with our cups of tea between us. I knew that he had left a functioning relationship for a new one, and that the new one had eventually run its course, and that he was now standing in front of the person he had left and offering her the label rare as compensation for 2 years of redirected grief and a hard-won reconstruction of a life that no longer had him in it. I knew that what he was describing as a realization was more precisely a result. He had not understood what he had while he had it. He had left. The thing he had left for had ended. And now he had arrived at his conclusion, that I was rare, through a process of elimination. I also knew something else, which was that I had spent 2 years becoming someone who no longer needed him to arrive at that conclusion. The first 6 months after he left had been the worst. Not because I was devastated, though I was, but because everything I had organized my life around had suddenly stopped being relevant. The flat we had been planning. The trips I had half-booked assuming he would be there. The future tense I had been using automatically for years, we will, we should, when we, all of it dissolved at once and I had to relearn how to plan in the first-person singular. It was one of the most disorienting things I have ever done. And then it stopped being disorienting. And then, slowly, unevenly, with several setbacks, it started to feel like something else. By the time he appeared in my doorway, I had been living a life that was unambiguously mine for over a year. I had reorganized my flat to suit exactly myself. I had made friends I had chosen entirely independently. I had taken a trip alone to somewhere I had always wanted to go and that he had always been lukewarm about, and the trip had been one of the best weeks of my life. I had gotten a promotion by doing work that no longer had to compete for my emotional attention. I had rebuilt everything. Not as a project of recovery, but as a simple extension of who I was when I wasn't fitting myself around someone else. I looked at him across the kitchen table and I tried to access the feeling I'd had when he left. That particular grief, the weight of it. It was there, distantly, like a scar you can feel without it hurting. I said, "I'm glad you came and told me this in person." He took that as something hopeful. I said, "I want to be honest with you, because you weren't honest with me and I think you deserve to know what honesty feels like from this direction." He waited. I said, "I don't think I want this. Not because I'm angry, I'm not angry anymore, which took a while to get to. But because the person you want to come back to isn't quite who I am now. She was someone who organized her life around you. I don't do that anymore. And I don't want to." He was quiet for a long time. Then he asked if there was any version of it I could imagine. I thought about that seriously, because I owed him a serious answer. "No," I said. I think I needed to lose you to find out what I was like without you. And what I'm like without you turns out to be the thing I actually want to be." He left an hour later. He sent a message that evening that was gracious and sad and genuine. I replied briefly and warmly, and then I put my phone down and went back to the book I had been reading before he knocked. I was 20 pages from the end. I finished it that night. Some endings take a long time to reach the right conclusion. The relationship ended 2 years ago. I finished it that night in my kitchen, over tea, without drama, or anger or regret. It turns out those are the best kind of endings. The ones you get to choose. If you've ever had to decide who you want to be on the other side of someone leaving, comment below. I'd like to hear it. Subscribe. New story every week. I've been thinking about the phrase he used. Made a mistake. And I think what bothers me most about it, what has always bothered me about that kind of language, is how it collapses the distance between a moment and a pattern. A mistake is something that happens. A series of decisions sustained over months is not a mistake. It's a set of priorities made visible. He had prioritized something else. The thing he had prioritized hadn't worked out. And when he came back to me, what he was actually asking was whether I would absorb the cost of his priorities. Whether I would reorganize myself, again, around his realization. Whether rare, as a word, was sufficient compensation for what the previous 2 years had required of me. I had done the math. It wasn't. I want to say something about what those 2 years actually cost, because I don't think people who haven't been through it understand the specific weight of rebuilding after someone leaves for someone else. It's not just the grief of losing the relationship. It's the secondary grief of realizing that the person you were in that relationship, the version of yourself who trusted completely, who made plans in the first person plural, who believed in a shared future, that person has to be retired. She was real. She existed. And she can't exist in the same form again, because the conditions that allowed her to exist have been permanently altered. You don't get her back. You get a different version. One who checks things. One who keeps, quietly, a small part of herself in reserve. One who loves well and generously and also knows, from experience, that the worst can happen and that she will survive it. That's not cynicism. That's what growing up actually looks like, sometimes. The version of me who stood in my kitchen across from him with my cup of tea was that second version. She was not the person he had left. She was better, in ways I am still discovering. But she was not available for the purpose he had in mind. He needed to know that. And now he did. I finished my book. I went to sleep. In the morning I made coffee for one, looked out at my city, and felt something I can only describe as completely, unambiguously mine. That feeling was worth everything that came before it. Subscribe. New story every week.